Hello, everybody. I'm Crystal Grayl. I have a degree in electrical engineering and MBA and over 20 years of industry experience. Today, I'm with my friend Duke. Duke, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Duke DeVan. I know Crystal from a long time ago. No, but me and Crystal are good friends. We used to work together in manufacturing. I was a manufacturing production assistant on the floor who actually went from production assistant into IT. And then now I am working in automation and AI for a Microsoft partner in the strategic layer. So nice to be
Very
here.
nice. Yeah, you were going to school, I think, too, at the same time as working in manufacturing.
Oh yeah. I won't do that again. But yeah, that was an experience. I would say I loved manufacturing, right? When I was in manufacturing, there are a lot of good jobs and good people, great people that you meet in manufacturing. But I've been a nerd since I was maybe 12 years old, maybe even longer, like watching like Star Wars and seeing them sit in the Death Star punching fictional keys to shoot lasers at Luke Skywalker and such. And so, like, I guess I was hooked since then. So I knew I wanted to do something that involved a computer eventually in my lifetime.
Yeah, and it is tough to go to school and work at the same time. I did that too for a while. I wouldn't do it again either. But, I mean, we worked together a little bit, but
Mhm.
also, like, our desks were just, like, across the aisle from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think I sat by accounting, which is always fun.
It is because they could just walk up and ask for an extract whenever they want one. Like I
Yeah,
don't
like,
have a
"Give me
regular
all this
job, but
data," like,
okay.
ugh.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I'm already doing something.
Yeah, so before we started recording, I was filling you in a little bit about, my book that I'm writing on, manufacturing and alignment of leadership and sort of a culture
Mhm.
shift over to continuous improvement to, double throughput and double revenue and all the good things with the same workforce and same square footage. And so culture shifting is kind of a hard thing to do. And even in your current role now, I know that you travel quite a bit and you go and talk to different teams and sort of have to educate them into
Mhm.
understanding what they want, even though they don't know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's fun and it's a struggle at the same time. It depends on where I land. There are so many different people on different sides of the spectrum, in the middle as well, when it comes to talking about culture. So like you have, people who've been in industry for maybe 20 plus years and they're, thinking about, riding off into the sunset. So, talking about culture changes with them is a little bit different. And then you have some who are just getting started and they're trying to, boil the ocean. So they're, really trying to, figure out what they can do. And then you just kind of have those stragglers who don't necessarily really know what they want to do. So it's a lot to deal with sometimes. It's fun, it's demanding, it's also a pain, So yeah, I get it quite a bit from it.
Yeah. Um, There's a lot of hand holding and yeah, sometimes people adopt to it pretty early, and sometimes people are
Mhm,
like, we've done it this way 20 years. I don't really want to change anything, even though, like, especially with
mhm,
technology, you kind of have
yeah.
to go forward or you're moving backwards, basically.
Mhm.
I know that you were talking about, like, nowadays, especially with some AI and stuff, like, it really doesn't matter what ERP system a company has. Basically where their data is, you're basically able to pull that from anywhere.
Yeah. So now with like AI before like when you were talking about like integrating with the ERP, it's like more straight up and down, what came out of the box and maybe some a little bit of customization, but it's really stuck to or confined to that particular vertical. Now in the space that I'm in, especially like with building AI agents, the agentic layer is designed more so for us to go and grab something from, say you're on SAP, but you have data over here in an Excel spreadsheet because I don't know why Fortune 500s and big companies run on spreadsheets, but that's how it happens sometimes. So sometimes you have data in ERP, data in spreadsheets. You may even have a macro running on somebody's laptop, which has happened.
Mhm.
macro run on somebody's laptop. They went on vacation, closed their laptop, and all of a sudden production is down. But you know, with the, so now it doesn't matter anymore. Now I can go and grab something from somewhere and I can consolidate that all in one space that works well for the organization. So what happens is if you're good with Excel, you don't necessarily have to come up with Excel, even though I advise it. Um, you don't if you're good inside of the user interface with the ERP, you don't have to come off of it. But your leaders or like your CEO, CFO, whoever, if they want that data in one consolidated piece or one interface or a chat like feature, they could ask it a question and that agent now goes and runs. It's almost like a person running from here to there to get all of this and create a report. And essentially that's what it was. People going into all these different systems and creating one report. Now we just have technology that can do it for us and faster.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I remember even doing that where you have, like, an old ERP and a new ERP and, yeah, like,
Oh
a
yeah.
spreadsheet locally, and you gotta pull data from everywhere to do, like, a monthly report that is
Hmm.
needed to get in front of the bigwigs and give them the, update, monthly update or quarterly update or whatever, and it was always a scramble.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
and stressful.
it, it, it wastes, I'd say it wastes time too, because I look at it like the big thing now is people like, well, AI is going to take my job. And I haven't
Mhm,
seen much of that. And I say that with caution because you've seen a bunch of layoffs and that's mainly due to like, prioritizing for like AI infrastructure. Um, but what I looked at is now you have those employees who can now do more high value work, right? Like writing a report, yeah, it can be considered high value based on whatever medium it's being used in. But what about those things that you wanted to do? Right. What about, now repurposing a person, like if we're talking about changing culture, okay, now part of your job isn't, just doing this report. Now we're going over here and how can we update the culture inside of the organization? How can we now train up new people to go on the path that we want to go based on this data that we pulled, that used to be a human person doing it, now having an agent do it. So that's kind of how I see it.
mhm.
These days, it's like, how do we go do more high value work? And then two, hiring strategically now. Now that you have AI, or you have automation taking over and doing some of these things, how can I now hire the right people? It isn't just about, improving headcount so we can get 20 things done. It's not now I can hire the right person to do the right thing all the time.
Yeah, it's like, it was basically busy work trying to pull all this data and information together and then format it right, and it's like you're doing the same thing over and over again, but with, pulling just the latest, and that's almost
Hmm.
like busy work, and so now that same person can really focus on interpreting the data
Yeah.
and, making decisions, forward-looking decisions that way, and for, like, Toyota Way, one of my favorite aspects of it is respect for people, and,
Hmm.
um, when you're eliminating waste, they call it, or mudra, is when you have these repeat activities that aren't really value adding, that's
Hmm.
not really a good use of their time. You're not really using their brain, and they could tell you
Hmm.
it's repetitive or that, you're undoing something that somebody else did. And it's
Hmm.
not really respectful of their time and their, knowledge, and so, in this way, I think that this application of AI is showing respect for people. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I've heard in some larger companies, they're starting to use AI for document updates, like quality management
Mhm.
system, QMS. So it's like, the standard operating procedures that are done or even work instructions on the manufacturing floor. It seemed if you're AS9100 certified or ISO 9001, you need those certifications so that you can, sell to customers that are, like, in automotive, aerospace, and defense. So it's like you have a system to deal with issues, and you're
Mhm.
also, um, doing what you say and say what you do because you have it documented, but it was always a struggle to keep those up to date at the speed in which things change in real life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and in that aspect, using AI just helps, bridge that gap because it's like they never had enough people to do it anyways. All the documents were always a little lagging behind. So it's not really
Right.
replacing the person, but it is reducing that lag. So that's another good good use of AI that doesn't eliminate jobs, as well. Also, AI hallucinates sometimes, and so
Oh, yeah.
you can't just, like, run it and then not check it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I say that when I talk to people about AI, right? Like you can tell, like here, are, like the typical characteristics, like more verbose terms inside, like oh that person doesn't talk like that, and then like M dashes, like when did you start putting all these dashes and things? But when I look at AI, and I tell people this, the formula, like I learned this lesson a long time ago, and it's not even a technology lesson. It's like my uncle always taught me the value of like hard work, right? Those who work hard will be the people that succeed. And I would say that people who work hard with AI would be the people that succeed, right? Like I think you still have to be the subject matter expert in your field or in your vertical or whatever it is that you do. Just because like I've had situations where I'm looking at something I've generated like something with AI and I'm like that doesn't quite make sense. I know this particular schema or this data it doesn't operate that way, right? I know that because I spent time with it, right? And so it makes me more efficient. Like I can scaffold an app or like put things together very quickly, but then now I have to go in there with the knowledge I've obtained over, X amount of years of doing this that, okay, this is, you gave me 80%. Now let me go and figure the 20%. And now I'm just getting things out quicker. So like I've had that with what is it? Like you were talking about like documents, updating documents like CPQ, right? Like had a customer or client was talking about like, doing quotes out in the field. And his thing was, well, I want to be able to be basically essentially be in the back pocket of my field techs or my field reps when they go out and configure these quotes. And I was like, well, that's good, but like let's do a little bit more with that. Like let's be able to like let's not just have a static, document somewhere. Like this document should be living. So like if your best practices are this when you're configuring a quote, like that should be living because over time things will change, right?
Mhm.
The different buildings or the different places that you'll service will change. Like you may be doing small like medical offices and banks now, but what if you start doing whole arenas now? So that document should stay living. So anytime the rep goes out and they say, "Hey, I'm doing this particular thing. This square foot is just way bigger than what it used to be." It should be able to go and trigger something that says, "Hey, we need to update this document." These and let AI reason over that and say, "Hey, this is what we should be including in our documents now and our best practices when we go out." So that should be living. And I've had that. I've had that where I've done like robotic process automation to do that. Even at the time, that like was it was revolutionary that you update this control document, but that still took a considerable amount of time. Now you just have artificial intelligence to do it a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely a time saver,
Mhm.
and you still have to have some kind of human oversight. But I think
Yeah.
it is, like, kinda doing that busy work, but also, like, doing a quick skim, like, reminding you, like, "Hey, these things really need to be updated," or "There's a newer version," or something, and then you
Hmm.
can focus more time on, like, your creative portion or, like, your education and your experience, and really focus on the real meat and
Hmm.
potatoes of whatever job you're working on, so and people
Yeah.
interactions too.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned too, like I look at it like now don't get me wrong, like I'm in like technology and I've done coding, right? And I build automations and I was scared. Like I was definitely afraid, like in 2020, 2021, like when all this stuff was coming out, I was like, hold on, what does that mean for me as a developer? Right. And what it did was this is like part of the job creation piece, or like even my idea of like culture had to shift of like, I got grounded, right? Cause I think like I don't know if it's a Wisconsin thing, but like growing up in the Midwest or slower parts of the country, I should say, kind of ground you in like, okay, of like you're a little bit more practical, I think
Mhm.
because of like just the slower pace. And so I actually like hold on, well, every industrial revolution, like something changed. Jobs got axed, new jobs were created, and then the same thing with like technology advances. Like Before you had factories filled with welders that were welding. Now you have robots that are doing the welding. I just saw like a documentary on like Caterpillar, like they have this massive robot that welds, but you still have the human welders, the human
Mhm,
capital that goes in and does the finite things, or does the things that the robot can't necessarily get to or do, or is not flexible enough to do. And so, like, I feel like with shifts in technology, with shifts like with our lessons learned, our culture, our mindset has to shift and bend to that. But you still have to work hard. I don't think I think these tools have the ability. One thing that I'm cautious about, it has the ability to make us not learn as much because with AI, you have the knowledge instantly. And then once you complete the task, it's like, okay, I don't need that anymore. And like for me, it's like, nah, I'm still gonna need that down the line. So, still being cautious and cognizant of that. At the same time I'm using this tool, I still have to learn and know what this tool is doing.
mhm. Yeah, it's pretty easy now. When someone asks a question, they're like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Only if you had a little computer in your hand that you could ask
Yeah.
any." you know you know, eh,
Yeah.
we didn't always have that, like, before
Mhm,
Google, before cell
mhm.
phones were, like, everywhere, you had pagers, and
Yeah.
before the internet, um, and before a USB, you had 5.5-inch floppy disks. I'm not
Oh,
I
yeah.
just turned 45 this year, so I'm halfway to 90 is what I say, but I
Oh, yeah.
remember, um, learning MS-DOS, and throwing in my 5.5-inch floppy so that I could play Skate or Die,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
on the computer, "Oh, I'm so high tech now." Like,
Oh, yeah. No,
and
I
like,
love it.
the save icon is the smaller the hard disk, the hard floppy
Yeah,
disk that was what, 3, 5, 4 inches? I can't
yeah,
remember. Everybody just remember the
yeah,
5.
yeah.
But, like, kids these days probably don't even know that the little save icon's actually, what it is. Oh, that's just the save
Yeah, yeah.
icon.
And the first person that brought me on, like, when I went from the shop floor into IT, like, told me, like, they used to have to write their programs on, like, punch cards, and they, like, carry this stack
Mhm.
of punch cards around, and if you drop the punch card, essentially drop your program, you basically had to go back and redo it because, like, now how do you remember what order these punch cards were
Yeah.
in? So, and that
Oh,
guy's still
yeah,
around.
that's
I think he actually might have retired recently, but that guy is still around through all of these advances in technology.
yeah, yeah, because that's even before then, so I
Yeah.
have met a few people that were in the punch card era, but, like, yeah, everyone's aging out, retiring, and going off doing whatever fun things in Bermuda now, and you're sort of losing that, like, losing that's people actually did that and not that long ago, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, AI is just another thing that we
Yeah.
have to adapt to, and it just sort of changes how we do things, and not everyone likes change, it's not always a comfortable thing, it's a
No.
disruptor,
Yeah.
um, and you have to find the good in it.
Yeah. But I think you win by being disruptive.
Mhm.
At least that's my take. Like, if we did the same thing over and over and over again, like, how far could we possibly go? Right? I don't think we can.
Yeah, I've sort of been a disruptor my whole career, even in college. I,
Mhm.
um, can't sort of help it when I see a problem or something that's not right and we should do something
Mhm.
about it. I don't let people forget it. I made the
Oh,
professor.
yeah.
I was electrical engineering major, and I wanted to do the Formula SAE, uh,
Mm.
for senior design, and it didn't make sense for the electrical and the mechanical students to just be separate. Like, let's do it together. We're doing the same competition. And the professors said no at first, and I marched up there and gave them a piece of my mind, and then they're like, "Okay, we can do it this way this year."
Yeah.
Because at that time, 25 years ago or something, a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, you're electrical. What are you gonna do with the car? Like, what do you mean? Besides just the wire harness, there's so many computers in every car
Mhm.
nowadays, but even back then there were."
Mhm.
Um, and then I ended up in automotive doing hybrid and electric vehicle systems, so
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think that's like, again, it's like a culture, like a shift in culture, because like, so like part of like when I'm not speaking, I'm doing like hackathons or enablement series or whatever. And typically like before you would just get a bunch of coders in a room and you say, have at it, right?
Mhm.
But the coders don't know everything that the business people know, right? And then so like now you have your different people in the business. You have your finance people in the business. You have your, and even finance breaks down to AR, AP. And then you have operations. So it behoove you, and that was actually like a good thing to do, was like you shift the culture of how we're running these different things, because it just makes it, you have the right people doing the right thing. And so you can be even more lean at that because you have, a few different domains in the room as opposed to, okay, we got 15 coders. And then when it's done, like, hey, I built this beautiful thing. And then you put it into the business user's hand. They're like, okay, well, what does it do? Because there was no input there. So
Mhm.
if you separate electrical engineers and mechanical engineers, it's like, okay, here, I built this thing. Okay, now what does it do? What's the practicality of that? And so at the hackathons, when I'm doing the hackathons, sometimes we don't even look for necessary completeness. We look for, were you able to work together as a team to come to a resolution on something that could be something on your roadmap in the future that you really want as your organization, but it's a viable product and you get, better buy-in politically because you had IT work on it, you had AP, you had AR, you had maybe a buyer or you had somebody from operations. If you think about it, everything on a production floor touches, you know, uh, some part of finance, right?
Mhm.
And that then impacts your bottom line. So whether it's your resources, your goods, I mean your unfinished goods, time and material, all of that touches those different things. So if you have all those people in that during that hackathon, or in your case, during this what was it, a competition, um, now our culture has changed from, okay, this is only for finance. No, the product may be for finance, but now the business is better because more than one person in the business knows something about that thing that is serving finance. But we all had our input. We all, and it all, again, at the end of the day, impacts profit, I feel.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting out of that silo mentality, especially even just
Yeah.
different departments,
Mm,
that was one of my favorite things to do where we worked together was, the Kaizens, and it would be
yeah.
people from all different departments, they may know each other, but not really have worked together, and getting them to work together as a cohesive team and and
Mm,
and get them all aligned on the same goal was my favorite thing to do. It was
mhm,
challenging, but really fun, and the I don't know what's lacking exactly when you completely work in silos, but it just works so much better when everybody works as a team together. And even not just a
mm,
task force where you come together and everybody just takes their individual tasks and goes off and works in the corners by each other. Like you have an alignment on what problem you're addressing and then also where you're going. Like what is your future goal? You kind of like you have that
mm.
future roadmap you said like that. So you're
Yeah.
all headed in the same direction and not like one way over here and one kind of over this way.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, too, like, I think you mentioned, like, the Toyota way. Is doing it like that, it is showing respect for the person because, what I've learned in doing these things, like, they're Kaizens for you, they're hackathons for me, is that you actually get to see how a person feels based on the decisions that were made,
Mhm.
right? So, like, if we're working together and, I'm big on this, like, when I work with a client, like, bring me the people that are touching this on a daily basis because you're gonna make a decision for them. And then they're gonna come back and say this app or this automation doesn't work, and you're gonna say, "Dude, you gave me the wrong thing." I'm like, "No, you gave me the wrong people." Like, so, and then we have to kind of find some way to mesh because we can't, it's not professional to blame each other, or play the blame game and move on. But again, having that respect for the person is understanding how they feel. Like I used to tell, like when I worked in, we worked in manufacturing, I was like, you have to think about what you're doing because when you work in, most plants have a metal roof. Here in Wisconsin, the seasons change, and so if you're in the metal roof, if it's about 80 degrees outside, and the sun's beaming down on that building, there was no shade, you're probably 10 degrees hotter in there. We
Mhm.
got to wear pants. We got to wear steel toe boots. And the last thing I want to think about is how you're getting ready to make my job harder. So
Yeah,
if you so if you're introducing some new technology to me, you're introducing a new process to me, hey, how can I do this and be hot at the same time? Right? And how can I do this? And we got it, it's not like school's closing when we get, down when we get a whole bunch of snow, but jobs don't. So,
right.
you know,
Yep.
I got to figure out where my kids are going. And then I got to drive here in this, I probably shouldn't be driving, but I have to work, and you haven't considered that as a decision maker at the top. So that doing that, it's I guess the Toyota way and having respect for a person or having those people come to the forefront to work on something together is vital.
Absolutely, and sometimes they call it going to Gemba, go to the place where the thing is actually happening, and that
Hmm.
includes the people that are touching it and working on it every day. They're the ones that know the most about what's going right and wrong on the
Yes.
daily, and if you're just sitting in the conference room and not interacting with those people or involving them or actually
Hmm.
seeing, the environment where the work is actually taking place, yeah, you're not really respecting them, and you're not also taking advantage of all the knowledge that they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that's key because like when I look at how much of the tacit knowledge that left some of the manufacturing facilities I used to work at, like people have been doing this for 30, 40 years. And because nobody's actually taken time to document this or go to Gemba, as you said, and figure out how this works. Once that person leaves, like then now it's like, hey, how do we go on? Or you know, like when I worked on like the product we were building, right? I knew when it came out of like the foamer or when the top came from the top area that this doesn't quite look right just by looking at it. Um, but if you never spent time with me to understand that, like how do you know to do this or how you know to do that? Like the SOP says this, I'm like, yeah, but there's this nuance with this one here because hey, we didn't have quite enough clearance here. I had to do this, and so when a new person comes in, or if I'm off or something like that, and then there's a new person being trained, they don't necessarily know that, and that product goes out wrong, and then the customer is upset because you didn't spend that time to understand what we were doing. Yeah,
Yeah, or it fails in the line test it.
yeah. Oh yeah, I hated that. I hated all of that. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think this was a really great conversation. I really
Mhm.
appreciate you talking with me, and,
Oh yeah,
hopefully
likewise.
yeah, hopefully we can do it again. It's a great, excuse to catch up too. Real
Yeah.
quick, and we don't have to include this if you don't want to, but if you remember the Kaizen you were in with me where we worked together, yeah, I do always do the icebreaker thing, and everyone hates it, but they also like it because you know everyone in the room, but you haven't necessarily worked with them that much. And, you say your name, how long you've been there, what you've worked in, like, an interesting thing about you, and I think you said something about your name, Duke, where you didn't know where that came from, and,
Hmm.
I think you said when you were younger, I mean, you were called that when you were younger, and
Hmm.
apparently you used to walk a little bit like a cowboy,
Oh
and
yeah.
I said, "Oh, well, that's where it came from. It's,
Yeah.
John Wayne from Spaghetti Westerns, the actor, like, he was called the Duke, so that's where your name is from."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's her name. My real name is my legal name is Marsharise.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I got the nickname Duke, and that's why I use it professionally because it's actually a good intro when I'm going. I get like I still get nervous when I do what I do and I get up and speak in front of people. And usually telling that story is a good icebreaker
Mhm.
to get the room going or laughing at least. Because surprisingly, there's still some people who remember John Wayne.
Yeah. So, alright, good, great talking to you. See you later.
All right. Likewise. Talk to you soon.